Shalom from Israel to all of the Daystar viewers around the world. I'm Moshe Bar Tzvi, the producer and founder of Israel Now News. We at Israel Now News are dedicated to bringing you the full story and the truth about Israel from Israel. It's written in the Holy Bible when David said in Psalm 25:5, "Lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all the day long." And God says in Zechariah 8:16, "These are the things that you shall do. Speak out the truth to one another. Judge with truth and judgment to peace in your gates. And always search for the truth, and the truth shall set you free." John 8:31. I hope you enjoyed the program. God bless you from Jerusalem. Shalom, shalom.
Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner.
In our top story, the U.S. Navy has blockaded the Arabian Sea to prevent Iran from transferring weapons to rebels in Yemen. An American naval official confirmed that a U.S. aircraft carrier has been deployed off the coast of Yemen, and several more vessels have been sent to the Gulf of Aden to block 8 Iranian ships. The hardline Islamic Republic is arming and supporting Houthi rebels who are trying to overthrow the Yemeni government, a move that the United States says will only contribute to greater violence in that country.
U.S. President Barack Obama said that he is using creative negotiating in the talks with Iran. Financial sanctions have been critical in deterring the hardline Islamic Republic from producing nuclear weapons, and all proposed agreements have consistently based relief from the punitive measures on compliance and transparency. Nevertheless, the White House announced that it is considering lifting all of the key sanctions at once, confirming Israel's fears that the long-term accord expected in June will meet all of Tehran's demands for almost nothing in return. The Obama administration has already capitulated on the demand that Iran recognize the existence of the State of Israel, which has only further paved the way for the Ayatollah's regime to boldly call for the destruction of the Jewish state. Yochanan has more on that.
That's right, Aaron. Iranian military leaders have boasted that Israel's destruction is non-negotiable. Israel radio quoted the commander of the Basij militia of Iran's Revolutionary Guards as saying that Iran would never compromise on its goal of destroying the Jewish state. Just last week, the streets of Tehran were flooded with people screaming death to America and death to Israel. The Iranian army paraded tanks, trucks, and weaponry as the country's president, Hassan Rouhani, addressed the crowd during Army Day celebrations. The procession included a full-length truck adorned with pictures of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, along with an enormous banner that read, "Death to Israel."
Former Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi has been sentenced to 20 years in prison for inciting murder. The Islamist leader and 12 other members of the Muslim Brotherhood were found guilty of involvement in the deaths of at least 10 demonstrators when security forces clashed with opposition protesters. This was the first verdict handed down against the former leader, who remains incarcerated at a maximum security facility in Alexandria, ahead of several upcoming trials on additional charges.
After announcing that Moscow will be providing Tehran with a highly sophisticated weapon system, Russian President Vladimir Putin warned Israel not to sell weapons to Ukraine. In a televised statement, Putin said the sale would only lead to another round of conflicts and to an increase in the number of victims, with the outcome remaining the same. Last week, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu personally spoke with the Russian leader in an attempt to persuade him not to sell weapons to Iran. Putin insisted on going forward with the deal. U.S. President Barack Obama did not condemn the move by the Kremlin, saying only that he was surprised that Moscow had refrained from selling weapons to Iran for so long.
There has been widespread condemnation of the latest gruesome video released by the Islamic State, capturing the execution of Christians. The graphic footage shows hooded terrorists beheading and shooting Ethiopian Christians in Libya who had been lined up and forced to their knees after refusing to renounce their faith. The terrorists are also seen desecrating crosses, the very symbol of Christianity, and replacing them with the black flag of ISIS. A narrator warns that the executions are a message to all Christians of what will happen to them if they refuse to convert to Islam. The Islamic State's war on Christianity has made a deep impression on other Islamist terror factions, particularly the Boko Haram in Nigeria, who are waging war on Western education and the Christian population in the African nation. The fundamentalist Muslim group has inflicted a bloody campaign of terror, killing thousands of Christians. Boko Haram pledged allegiance to ISIS last month, and while experts debate which terror group is worst, both openly advocate the establishment of an Islamic caliphate that would pose a grave threat to the Christian community and minorities throughout the world.
Pope Francis has condemned the resurgence of anti-Semitism in Europe. The head of the Roman Catholic Church addressed a conference of European rabbis where he urged all Christians to stand firm against what he described as this worrying trend. The pontiff has long called for reconciliation between the Church and Israel, reminding Catholics that Judaism is the root of the Christian faith. Recent studies show that anti-Semitism in Europe is approaching pre-World War II levels.
The Israeli Foreign Ministry has decided to boycott the upcoming visit to the Holy Land by former U.S. President Jimmy Carter. Carter announced his plans to visit the Palestinian areas, including Gaza, where he intends to hold talks with Hamas terrorist leader Ismail Haniyeh. The declared purpose of the visit is to engage in attempts to broker negotiations between the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah and the Hamas terrorist organization, amid reports that the so-called Palestinian unity government between the two formerly bitter rivals is now on the verge of collapse. The Foreign Ministry's decision was based on Carter's longtime anti-Israel rhetoric and efforts to delegitimize the Jewish state, as well as his established record of meeting with the leaders of Palestinian terror organizations.
Shurat Hadin has once again made headlines for winning another high-profile case in the United States. In a historic judgment, a Washington, D.C. court ruled that North Korea is liable for damages to the family of a U.S. citizen who was kidnapped, tortured, and is now presumed dead. The court ruled that damages are owed to the brother and son of Reverend Kim Dong-shik and demanded that North Korea pay $330 million as a result of his abduction, torture, and wrongful death. Reverend Shik was a champion of human rights and worked with defectors from North Korea in China. In the year 2000, he was abducted by a man working with North Korean intelligence. Shurat Hadin will now assist his family in collecting the judgment against North Korea, including freezing their assets in the United States.
The International Federation of Soccer has caved into political pressure and has announced its decision to consider a request from the Palestinian Authority to ban Israel from the league. The chairman of Israel Soccer Association, Ofer Eini, was in Switzerland this past week to appeal that call, where he denounced the Palestinian demand as a blatant attempt to mix sports with politics. He went on to say that rather than using the game as a bridge between Israel and the PA, the Palestinians would rather operate with boycotts and sanctions, which only serve to exacerbate the situation. It's important to note that many Palestinian players are members of Israeli soccer teams, and that the Jewish state consistently tries to utilize athletics as a means to encourage coexistence.
The Palestinian driver who ran down two young Israelis last week has admitted that he did so intentionally. Jerusalem police have confirmed that the tragic crash, which killed a young Jewish man and left a 20-year-old girl critically injured, was an intentional act of terrorism. The 37-year-old Palestinian suspect from Jerusalem admitted that he wanted to murder Jews as revenge for his miserable life.
5 Muslim teenagers have been arrested in Melbourne on charges of conspiring to carry out terror attacks. According to Australian police, the suspects say that they were inspired by the Islamic State terrorist organization and had planned to launch their assault during commemorations for the National Day of Remembrance on the 25th of April. Saying that the best sign of defiance to those who would do us harm, Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott called on the public to take part in Anzac Day ceremonies in record numbers to demonstrate solidarity in the face of rising terrorist threats. This latest development abroad comes as 6 other Muslim men were also arrested in the United States for attempting to join the Islamic State terror organization fighting in Syria.
The Israeli Knesset has become the greenest parliament in the world. In March, a 50,000 square foot solar field was unveiled on the roof of the Israeli parliament building. It will provide 1/3 of the Knesset's energy needs. The staff of the Knesset is receiving training on environmental awareness, and the entire building has been placed on an automated system which turns off lights and computers when not in use. Member of Knesset Dov Hanin, who heads the Environmental Caucus, said that Israel's parliament is among the most advanced in the world, and we hope that government ministries, private businesses, and other legislative bodies around the globe will follow our example.
And that concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host Josh Reinstein, and we're here on a beautiful day in Jerusalem on our rooftop studio. My guest today is Bishop Daniel Williams, the director of the Jerusalem Call. Bishop Williams, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Josh.
Bishop Williams, tell our viewers a little about what is the Jerusalem Call.
Well, as you know, the whole world is trying to divide Jerusalem into two capitals, and we are standing against that. The fact is that God called this city His own place, where He put His own name. And now we have the European Union, we have even the United States of America's current administrative policy is to divide Jerusalem into two capitals. And so the world wants to turn Jerusalem into East Berlin and West Berlin. We're standing against it. The Jerusalem Call is to engage with that issue, to advocate on that issue, and also to stand with Israel for a united, undivided Jerusalem.
Now you're bringing in actual churches across America to get involved with the Jerusalem Call. What does that entail?
Well, we're going to churches across America, and we do a one-day event. In some cases, we'll do a two-day event. But what we're doing is we're helping believers understand what the Bible says about Jerusalem, but also to take that support. We have a lot of people that wave flags and they sing songs, but the fact is, and they pray for Israel, and they're sincere in that. But the fact is that that has not translated into political support for Jerusalem in particular. And so that's what we do in the Jerusalem Call.
This initiative is under the auspices of the Israel Allies Foundation. How does that work hand in hand?
Well, the Israel Allies Foundation helps to build caucuses, pro-Israel caucuses around the world, but we're also doing that state to state in the United States as well, trying to pass a resolution throughout the states to recognize Jerusalem as the undivided capital of Israel. And so the Israel Allies Foundation, of course, is working top down on a state level, on a national level, and on an international level. But what it needs underneath are believers, Christians and Jews alike, who believe the Bible, who will come up underneath that and stand with the politicians that will risk their career and will take a stand for the sake of Israel.
You're also partnering in the Jerusalem Call with some of the two biggest local organizations that have branches around the world, the International Christian Embassy and Bridges for Peace. Why do you think it was important for them to come on board with this initiative?
Well, obviously they have for a long time been working on these issues, and so in both cases they've been here for decades in Israel, standing with the Jewish people, standing with Israel, with material help, with helping people make Aliyah. And really, truthfully, organizations like the Israel Allies Foundation are building on the foundation of goodwill that these other Christian organizations, we're not a Christian organization, we are a faith-based organization, but we are Jewish and Christian, based here in Jerusalem and then also in Washington, D.C., but we're partnering with these Christian organizations that have been gaining goodwill here in Israel from how they have treated the people of Israel. And so they're not only important partners from a faith standpoint, they're important partners from a geopolitical standpoint.
You know, we have people, Christian supporters of Israel, always asking, what can I do as an individual? Through the program with the Jerusalem Call, what are some concrete steps they can take?
Well, one of the things that we ask them to do, number one, is to be registered to vote. But secondly, we call them to prayer. Now, prayer, it sounds like just something you just do, you talk to God about something that He may be interested in. But prayer is something way more than that. When Jesus spoke to His disciples, He said to them, you see the harvest around you, you pray to the Lord of the harvest that He would send laborers into the harvest. You see, the fact is that they became the answer to their own prayer. What prayer does, it aligns you, it's not getting God's attention, it aligns you with the will of God. And God has been very clear on this. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. He said He has put His name here forever. And He's given this as the city of David forever. And so what we want to do is align not only our thoughts and our our prayers, as it were, but align our lives. Prayer aligns our whole life, our time, our talent, our treasures with what it is we're praying about. And so that's what we do. So we call them to prayer, and then we call them to advocate, to become a part of a network of people we're in constant communication with, and we're calling them to action in their own states and in their own nation to stand for Israel.
I understand that there are actually concrete legislations in the Congress being ready to be decided on that people can show their support for. How does it work with the actual legislation?
Well, what most people don't realize is that in 1995, the United States government passed a law that recognizes Jerusalem as the undivided capital of Israel. However, there was a waiver put into that law that every 6 months, on the basis of national security, the president could waive that for 6 months, and that's what they've done since 1995. Every 6 months, every president has waived that, moving the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and recognizing Jerusalem as the eternal capital, as the undivided capital of Israel. Even though it's law, it's been waived. We're saying to our legislators, stand up for that law and either take away the waiver or hold accountable this administration and every administration to stand by the will of the American people and the law that was passed in 1995.
You know, the division of the capital of Israel, Jerusalem, seems like a political ploy. They pretend that there are two capitals. There's East Jerusalem, West Jerusalem. Yet in East Jerusalem, all the holy sites are there, the old city, anything that's holy to Christians and Jews are there, because really East Jerusalem is Jerusalem. West Jerusalem came about later in the 19th century. When you talk to people in the pews, do they understand by dividing Jerusalem, they're really giving away Jerusalem?
I don't think that people in the pew, frankly, understand that that's what's going to happen. I mean, they hear about two-state solution, they get confused with the issues of what's fair for the Palestinians, and we hear all of these terms put out that Israel is an apartheid state and all these other outlandish things that are said, and I think it just gets lost in the conversation. I don't think most believers I don't think that even most Jews or Christians in America think about the fact that Jerusalem, the holy city, the city that we all consider so beloved, is going to be divided into two capitals if the world has its will. We're standing against that, and I would challenge believers around the world to stand against that in their own nations and certainly across the United States of America.
Daniel, there are literally tens of millions of people watching the show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
Well, the first thing I would say is, again, go back to prayer, align your life, your time, your talent, and your treasures up with that. But I especially want to speak to the pastors, especially in America. And I want to say to you pastors, if you would like to have the Israel Allies Foundation bring to your church or bring to your area a Jerusalem call, we'll bring congressmen, sometimes we'll bring diplomats from Israel itself, but you can count on this. You'll have an inspirational night, and we'll give people an opportunity to get directly involved right in your area, right in your state, and right in our nation to help stand with Jerusalem, to keep Jerusalem from being divided.
Thank you, Bishop Williams, for being on the show, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, shining light from Israel.
You'd be surprised to know that while the Knesset is home to 120 Knesset members, its surroundings are also home to thousands of other friends: Jerusalem pines, Kermes oaks, protected anemones, jackals, porcupines, countless butterflies, and numerous birds. In other words, the Givat Ram area where the Knesset is located is an urban nature site. And as of today, the Knesset is about to integrate with its surroundings more naturally than ever, turning into the world's greenest parliament, or in short, the Green Knesset. Real-life politics contain a lot of energy, but the Knesset will soon become a more energy-efficient place. solar panels that will be installed on 4,600 square meters of the Knesset roof that will provide electricity to the Parliament building. The heat released by the air conditioning system will be used for water heating. All the electric and lighting systems, IT and air conditioning will turn on and off automatically. Other revolutionary projects related to energy, water and recycling are also planned in order to save millions of shekels from the Knesset budget and to redirect funds to other green initiatives. All of the Knesset staff will be trained on sustainability and will personally demonstrate how to think long-term and act green on a daily basis. Once completed, the Knesset will become a building that educates, an active role model demonstrating and combining the three sustainable values of environment, society, and economy.
Dear guests, Green Knesset. David Ben-Gurion once wrote, "Yesterday made today possible, and tomorrow is part of today." So here in the Knesset, all of our tomorrows are starting today. Together with my partners, the Knesset Green Forum and the environmental organizations, I am proud to inform you that the green future of the Knesset is already here.
Please stay tuned for the ICEJ report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
In 1980, the Israeli parliament passed a law declaring a united Jerusalem as the eternal capital of the State of Israel. Threatened by the Arab League with an oil embargo, national embassies in Jerusalem closed their doors. That same year, Christians from around the world gathered in Jerusalem to celebrate the Feast of Tabernacles. Sensing the isolation of the Israeli people, the participants and leaders of this gathering decided to establish the International Christian Embassy in Jerusalem.
It's always important for us to remember that the Christian embassy was actually established out of the Feast of Tabernacles. And this is something which marvels me until today, to think that for now more than 30 years, Christians are coming from all over the world to celebrate with us a Jewish festival, Sukkot. Ray, what is your experience with that?
Just for me personally, it's such an amazing expression of unity of the body of Christ to see so many Christians from so many different backgrounds, from so many different faith origins, and they come to Jerusalem and everything is kind of put aside with just this heart and intent to number one, worship the Lord, but then also to want to be a blessing to this nation and an encouragement to this nation. I think it's a great opportunity for people to come, and it's a great season for people to come and visit Israel.
You are traveling all over the world. You know what it means to see churches all over the world supporting Israel.
Yeah, we not only have a mandate here in Israel, but we also have it in the nations.
Yes.
And in the nations, we serve the local body of Christ with our message. Jesus at the center, his character of covenant-keeping God highlighted in his dealings with Israel. And the Lord has been good to us. We've been able to touch the whole nations. We raised the global prayer on behalf of Israel, and we are acting as a bridge between the Gentile nations and Israel. And we do all this because we know that whoever blesses Israel shall be blessed.
Actually, to bless Israel, practically there's much more than just coming here as a visitor to this land. Nicole, what can people do in order to help Israel very practically?
Well, since Israel was established as a nation, you know that they've been very successful in a great many areas. However, there's still a lot of challenges that Israel faces today in the area of social needs. And it gives us an opportunity as Christians to reach out in a practical expression of love and support for this people and to say to Israel that she's not alone. We have the privilege and the opportunity to work with every sector of Israeli society, whether that's the Jewish, secular, Orthodox, Arabs, Druze, Bedouin, everyone in the whole society, we have the opportunity to work in every sector.
I like what 1 Corinthians 13 says, the love chapter, how it describes love as patient and kind. It also says that love rejoices in the truth. As Christians, we want to be out there, and we carry out our media publications initiative through many mediums. We have a daily news service where reports go out by email. We also post it on our website, www.icej.org. And we have a weekly radio program, Front Page Jerusalem, heard on about 100 Christian radio stations across North America, also around the world. We have weekly TV spots now on Daystar. We're going to be working with God TV on a weekly program called Word from Jerusalem. And our monthly magazine is also called Word from Jerusalem, which it gives you updates about our events, our activities, also current affairs, analysis, I think most important Bible teachings about Israel. And I think when you get to the core of it, we want to speak biblical truth to the church, to the nations about Israel.
You just had the privilege to meet our leadership team here in Jerusalem and to be part of one of our strategic meetings which take place every single week here. Here we strategize, we plan, we think about how we can bless Israel at the best. And I want to invite you personally today to partner with the International Christian Embassy here in Jerusalem. We are your embassy. We want to be there for you in order to convey your blessings and to convey your love to the Jewish people. Please stand with us, please pray for us, and prayerfully consider to support us financially. Thank you so much, and may the Lord bless you here out of Zion.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.